Hello, and welcome to this episode of Esoteric Nation. Today, we're going to be unpacking my 4 layers of fairy tale stories. So this is an idea that serves the purpose of having a basic principle, a basic concept in which we can understand the story that we are engaging in, right? So 4 layers of a fairy tale story. The first layer, right, is that of the layer of enjoying a story, right? You find a tale, whether it's in the genre of myth, folklore, or something more traditional or something more modern. It can be Harry Potter, or it could be the tale that we are focused in this series of videos of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. So the first layer is you simply enjoy the story, right? And there's so many stories out there. I mean, if you go to a place like Barnes and Nobles, there are thousands of stories, right? They're all stories, right? They're all narratives. And it's just a matter of finding a story that you find interesting enough to engage, right? And since we at the consumer level, we judge a book by its cover, that is initially the entry point into any kind of a story. Right? But in this series of videos, we're focusing on The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, right? So the first layer is you enjoy the story. You enjoy this idea of wizards and elves and adventure and werewolves and orcs and these dark spirits. You enjoy that narrative, that tale, and you just simply follow the story, right? Page after page, chapter after chapter, right? And if it's a great story, like a tale like, Tolkien's Legendarium, it draws you in, right? Each chapter, each page, each theme, each idea draws you deeper into the story, right? And that is one of the reasons that people follow book series, as in the case of the Harry Potter series, which I know very little of, but it's very similar, right? I think there's like maybe 7 or 8 volumes in the Harry Potter series. In the Lord of the Rings, there are 6 books, right? Broken down into 3 parts. Which are typically like the 3 physical books that are sold in bookstores, right? But the first layer of the story is you simply enjoy the story itself, right? And it draws you in, right? Now, after a couple of reads either of the book or various different tales, eventually that will lead us into the second layer of the story, which is now an academic study of fairy tales, right? And there are a few schools online that do offer introductory courses on the deeper aspects of these stories. So the second layer is the academic study, right, where you study the symbolism behind the themes and characters and archetypes, and you begin to understand the structure of how stories are made, right? But at this second layer is still what is known as a neck up study, right? It's an intellectual study in which one feels connected intellectually to the story, right? And then after a while, you go down one layer deeper into the third layer of the story, right? Which is the mythological layer, right? And this usually, occurs after a couple of years of spending in that, academic level of studying tales, right? So at the third layer, right, one now goes from an academic, what is known as a neck up study, down to the mythological level, right? That's what you can say the intuitive level, right? Where now you feel connected to the story, right? Just like one feels connected to, let's say, a friend or a community or a society or a club, right? Or even a genre of literature, right? At this third layer of the story, one is now developing this energetic connection to the stories, to the tales, right? And one begins to be drawn into the tales itself, where now one feels that we are a part of those stories, right? Now, what's interesting between the way that they say young minds, let's say children or adolescents, compared to the way that adults approach fairy stories, is that the younger minds, they already have an open mind, an open imagination, and they don't really need an academic layer of studying tales because they intuitively feel connected to the stories, right? Children, they want to enact, they want to imitate the stories that they love and enjoy, right? They don't understand that intellectually, but intuitively they understand that they want to go out in the world and act out the heroic adventures that they read or see in the stories that they like, right? So it's a lot easier for the younger minds to really, go all into these stories, where to adults, adults who have been programmed, right, and have distanced themselves from, the magical aspect of these stories, it requires a lot of academic study in order to rekindle that connection to these kinds of stories. So that's why spending a couple of years at that second layer of academic study will draw a bridge, back to these stories, right? Back to when we were children, where we really felt that we were a part of something magical, right? So from the second layer of an academic study, we go into that third layer, which children, transition over very easily, right? But each case is different. So, but as long as we find our way back to that mythological level, that intuitive level where we are a part of those stories. So that's layer 3. Now, beyond that, we go into what I call layer 4, right? So if layer 3 is the dimension of building a relationship with the stories, at level 4, you have now joined together with the story. You are the story. You are the tale. You are the new tale, the new myth, right? So, for example, in The Hobbit, you have Bilbo Baggins, who went out on his journey, came back, and then in the second series of the books, The Lord of the Rings, the journey is now carried over by Frodo Baggins, right? So it gets carried, the story continues with every character that enters, the journey. So at layer 4, right, we become the new carriers of these traditions as a living embodiment, as people like to say, right? So at this 4th layer, right, you have gone beyond the intellectual level. you have gone into level 3 of the intuitive level, and then at the fourth layer of the story, you are the living story. You are the living tale, the living myth, right? And that is where it gets really interesting. And typically, what people who are at that level in our modern society, what they tend to do is put out videos or essays or books walking people through those first 3 layers of the story, which is enjoying the story, and then layer 2 of the academic study of the story, and then layer 3, which is building that intuitive connection to the story. And eventually, one day, right, whether it's 7 years or 12 years or more, eventually one will find a new home on the other side of these stories, which Tolkien called fairy, right? So in summary, there are 4 layers of every tale. The layer 1 is where you enjoy the story just for the story itself. Layer 2 is where now one engages in the academic study of the tales, understanding the principles behind the themes and the characters. Layer 3 of the story is where one now builds an intuitive connection to the tales, where now one is becoming one with the mythology, right? And then layer 4 is where one has now found a new home, right? One no longer reads these stories, but lives them, right? And part of living the myth, part of living the fairy tales, is that one carries forth the tradition of storytelling, which is the tradition of folklore or mythology or fairy tales. So, in conclusion, right, these are the 4 layers that I've present that I think hopefully clarifies the 4 dimensions of enjoying, studying, and uniting with these kinds of stories.